All right, guys. So today we're going to be doing a review of the brand new Linkin Park album From Zero. I am a big believer in separating the art from the artist. So, for the sake of my review, we are going to just be focusing on the music itself, the physical release, and then I will give some of my overall thoughts of where the band currently is and kind of the state of everything. First and foremost, I do want to say that I am not a fan of Emily Armstrong's, religious beliefs. I don't agree with pretty much anything on about the Church of Scientology, and I do think that coming out and writing a statement in support of Danny Masterson, even if that is something that was asked for from you by your religious organization, still not okay. But again, I do like to separate art and artists. I know not everyone feels that way, but I still listen to Michael Jackson. I still listen to some other musicians that are probably a little bit more than problematic, just because I do enjoy the music. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about the physical release. So, first and foremost, I do really like this album cover. I think it's visceral. I think it definitely invokes certain emotions. I think it's a cool color combination as well. And I do like that they kind of just went with the very simple design of just like the logo in the middle of it. On the back, you've got, the band kind of like obscured, faces a little bit blurry with just the track list. So that's pretty cool. It's very minimalist. Then on the inside, you have the band kind of shown through this obscured sort of glass, which is it's fine. I don't think this is a strong enough image to take up the entirety of the interior gatefold, but it is what it is. Even though it's a gatefold, you do have one side completely sealed, and then you've got the actual record and then the insert. So we'll go over the insert first. It is just one pretty much like kind of booklet. I feel like this is a missed opportunity to do a full poster, especially if this is like your comeback album. I do like the kind of, classic 2000s album artwork, interior artwork, where it's just like a checkerboard of like lyrics and images and stuff like that. And then you've got, again, just the kind of another version of the imagery on the front, and then a little just like note from the band on the back. So I do like it. Again, I think it's a missed opportunity. It could have been a full blown poster or like a booklet, like a bigger booklet or something like that. Especially if this is like, again, your comeback album. This is the first pressing. I don't know. I feel like it leaves a little to be desired. And then you've got the record itself. So if I can get this back in here. So I got the again, I think this was the first pressing they did. It was like the blue and orchid splatter, which I do like a lot. I think it's a really really beautiful record. So they get points for that. And then you've got again more kind of just like distorted images of the band on this side, and then you've got the logo on this side with some more kind of the trippy imagery in the background. So overall, I am fairly pleased with the packaging for this record. As far as the sound quality goes, it sounds pretty good. It's not a super long record. It's 11 songs, 10 songs really, if you're not counting the intro song, at just over half an hour. So having it just be an A side, a B side, you're still able to, put a lot of data on just that because, again, they're not super long songs, about 15 minutes per side. And I'm definitely glad that I waited to do a review of this album until I actually got the physical release, because one of my biggest complaints on my 3 listens leading up to getting it on vinyl, which was yesterday, my biggest issue with the album was how poorly it was mixed or how poorly it sounded. Like the drums were super loud, the vocals were super loud, but I could barely hear like any guitar, synths, keys, anything like that. Even the bass was like pretty mild and mellow. And so getting it on vinyl and being able to listen to it on like a decent sound system and not just on Spotify, it sounds much better. So I had to go back and adjust some of my notes for the actual like music itself, because once I was able to listen to it on vinyl, it sounded much better. It's why, I'm a huge advocate of physical media if you really want to get the sound quality of something. But yeah, it's a good physical release. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the album itself. So for me, the biggest thing that I found listening to this album is how like flat some of the drums sounded to me. I know that obviously the big news of this band is the addition of Emily Armstrong after Chester's death about 7 years ago. But another big piece that I think a lot of people are missing is the fact that Rob Borden is no longer on drums. This is pretty noticeable, I believe, on a lot of the songs on this album. I feel like the drumming just isn't quite there, which is kind of like part of my issue with this album as a whole. But I'll talk about that more later. Let's get into the actual song list, starting with the title track of From Zero. This is not even a song, it's just an intro that leads straight into Emptiness Machine, which was the first single they released. It was what they opened their big, like, announcement surprise show in LA. I watched the live stream for that. It's a good song. I do enjoy it. I think it's well written. I think it's well mixed. I think it's well produced. But I do have a couple issues with it. First and foremost is Mike singing. Mike is just not a good singer. Like, he has always kind of found his sweet spot of, doing his sort of unique rap style mixed in with the main vocalist of the band, which is always Chester. And luckily on this song, he does allow Emily to sing the majority of it, like once she comes in. I don't know if they intentionally wrote the song to be dramatic, where when they did their like live stream announcement show, it was just Mike on stage singing, obviously with the rest of the band, but like Mike on stage singing, and then Emily didn't like come out on stage until her part. I hope that they didn't write the song to specifically do that little bit, but yeah, I mean, Mike's is just not a good singer. He's just not. So it's pretty weak there, but the song is catchy. It's not a bad song. It's solid. It's fine. It's not anything that's going to like break the mold of, what Linkin Park has come to be known as. But it's a decent way to open the album. Then we get into Cut the Bridge. Now, this song is just not good. Like, I'm sorry if you like it. I'm glad you find enjoyment out of it. But like, the chorus is just gimmicky and schlocky, and it's not written well. Again, Mike's singing is terrible. Emily's singing even here isn't like very good. Like, it's not terrible, but it's a little bit more subdued than some of like her louder stuff. The guitar work here is super boring. There's like nothing exciting about it. The drums again are super flat on this song, and it just feels like a half-assed, like thrown together track that was not fleshed out, or like no one listened to it and gave them like decent feedback on it, which is disappointing. But it does get into the next song, which is Heavy as the Crown. I believe this was the second single they released on the album. And I actually do really like this song. I think it's a great song. Up until this point, it's the one that feels most like a classic Linkin Park track to me. Now, I'm going to say classic, and, take everything that I say with a grain of salt, because I really kind of stopped listening to Linkin Park after like Thousand Suns or like Minutes to Midnight. I don't know. I like their last three albums. I don't think I listened to once. So I'm not gonna sit here and try and tell you what Linkin Park should sound like now, because I'm definitely not like the person to talk about the later half of their career. And obviously, this is kind of a continuation of that, just without Chester and Rob. But I mean, Meteora and Hybrid Theory are two of my favorite albums of all time. I have definitely talked about them a lot. You can find links to videos where I talk about both of them right here. But again, I just, this song to me at least feels like a Linkin Park song, which I do really enjoy. It's a little bit heavier. It's got, Emily screaming on it at a couple points, which I think her screams are pretty solid. I like the guitar work here. I like the drums here. They at least kind of switch it up, and I do feel like they get a little bit more technical than some of the pretty basic rhythms that were on the previous two songs. And this actually has like some good rapping from Mike, which again, I think that's where like he shines. Like his attempt at actual singing is just not good. Like he's just not a good singer. But obviously, if you like Linkin Park, you like his very unique kind of rap delivery, and I think it works really well on this song. After that is Over Each Other. Now, this is one where in my first few listens through, when I was just listening on Spotify, I was just baffled because the drums were mixed so loud and it like overpowered everything else. And they weren't good enough to be like the forefront of the song. But listening to it on vinyl, it's mixed a lot better. At least it sounds a lot better on my sound system. So I took that criticism out of it. The drums still are a little bit louder than I think a few of the other main instrumentation in the song, but it's not so loud that's like all you hear. This is another like just okay song. Like it's not bad. I don't love Emily's singing here. I think when she's like kind of pseudo screaming is her sweet spot. So this is a more kind of like ballad, clean singing style from her, which is not my favorite. But again, it's not bad by any means. It's just another kind of like forgettable song that I don't feel the need to go back to many times. Especially I've now listened to this album 4 times all the way through, and it's just hasn't brought anything on repeat listens that has really hooked me. But then we get into Casualty, which is probably one of the hardest songs they've written to date. And I actually like this song. So this one, it doesn't necessarily feel like a Linkin Park song to me, but that's okay. Like it doesn't have to, especially in this like new iteration of the band. But it's pretty brutal. Like it's a good, honest to God, like metal song. It's got like some metalcore, hardcore elements to it. Definitely has some new metal elements to it. The guitar work here is pretty good. The drums are definitely a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more experimental, a little bit more exciting, and I think just across the board, it is a really solid track, and definitely one that I'm going to be listening to a little bit more frequently than some of the other ones on the album. But then we go from there into Overflow. Now, Overflow is not a bad song. It just confuses the hell out of me. Again, not necessarily in a bad way. It feels kind of weird and out of place on the album. It's like almost borderline trip hop with this sort of like driving beat and very like more laid back vocals, at least from Mike. And then Emily's vocals like progressively get a little bit harder as like the song goes on, but the instrumentation doesn't. It's a weird combination. Again, there's like it's about as far from metal as they get on the album, which is fine. Like it doesn't all have to be metal, but it's such a weird song in the mix, like in the concept of all the rest of the songs on the album. But I do actually enjoy it. So I do like listening to it. It's, I'm always for throwing a curveball in the middle of the album, and they definitely did that with this song. But it's good. It's definitely one that I will continue to listen to. And then from there, we get into Two Faced, and this is another song that feels like a Linkin Park song to me. I actually really enjoy this one. The Mike's rapping on it is really good. The guitar work is solid. You get some scratching over the guitar as well, which that is like such a cornerstone of Linkin Park that I'm really surprised it's taken us this long to get it on the album. But again, it's not like mind blowing, but it's a solid song, and I think it's a good anchor towards the back half of this album to keep me interested and keep me engaged, and make me not completely like dislike what I'm listening to. But then we get into Stained, which is probably my least favorite song on the album. I don't know. Emily's got these like weird vocal like pitch changes and inflections in the chorus. It's not good. It's not pleasant to listen to. I don't know. The whole song just feels a little quiet. Again, even like listening on good speakers, it just feels like it was always waiting to do something more, and I never quite got it. Again, it's another song that feels like not fully fleshed out. There's some good bones to it, I guess. I can see like some of the instrumentation like being maybe reworked in a way that I would enjoy it, but overall it's just not a great song. And then we get into IGYEIH, or I Gave You Everything I Had. It's good. It's got some good back and forth between Mike and Emily. I like the guitar work here a lot. It is a little bit on the heavier side, and it's got a really fun ending. It's not like a standout track, but it's definitely a solid one. And at the very least, they kind of every time they give me a song that I'm not loving, they at least will follow it up with one that I am enjoying. But then we end the album with "Good Things Go," which to me feels like a bad Imagine Dragons cover. Like it's just not a decent song. I mean, I guess if you're into, very generic kind of synth driven, like hard rock ballads, which I feel like is all Imagine Dragons does, like you might enjoy it, but it's not for me. It's a weird way to end the album. It kind of feels like the whole thing just goes out with a whimper and not super exciting for a fairly lackluster album experience overall. So yeah, I think it's important to note that I think this could have been received better if they had renamed the band or like rebranded or something like that. Even just like the album title. So obviously before Linkin Park, they were called Zero, but with an X, so XERO. Even if they had just named the album from Zero with an X instead of a Z, that might have at least drawn more people in or like been a more clear homage to their roots. Clearly a band is not one person, and I think that Mike and the rest of the guys have the right to go on and perform, their songs, continue making music and continue to exist as a band. Bands have done it over history. Very rarely has there been a band that was so defined by their lead singer as Linkin Park, and I think that's probably part of the issue. But I've got a lot of friends who have listened to this as well, and like some of the singles leading up, and said they would be way more open and like they would have enjoyed it more if they had just called it something besides Linkin Park. I don't think that's necessary to enjoy this album, and I think there's definitely people out there that will enjoy it. It's just for me, it's very kind of middle of the road. But again, I did not really enjoy late era Linkin Park, or at least later era Linkin Park. I didn't even listen to the last three albums, and that's okay. Like it's okay to only like a couple albums in the band's discography, and as long as you're at least trying to find other stuff and you're not just listening to the same thing over and over again, there's nothing wrong with going back to your favorites. This is not going to be one of my favorites, but it's definitely one that I'll throw on every now and again. There's enough songs on here that keep me interested and will warrant a repeat listen from me. So that's why I'm feeling a B minus on it. I don't think it's terrible. I think it definitely could have been better. I think there's definitely some songs that probably could have been written or performed or just flushed out a little bit more. But there's also some songs on here that I did really enjoy listening to. So that's going to be it for me, guys. Let me know down in the comments what your opinions on this album were. If you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. As always, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.